take the instrument and put it somewhere else in the studio, and then
Next question.
no more questions, please. How's it going? We had this big change, right? So Yves left the band, sadly. And he was like our main songwriter. That sucked, actually.
Yeah, he was very good at writing whole songs in a very short time.
Crazy.
Yeah, and usually they didn't need too much adjustments after he wrote them, so it went pretty fast.
You know what I loved about these songs was like the working title names, like Motherfucker 9000 or whatever.
Yeah.
Or like
Nipple Twister.
Nipple Twister. Then we had like this what's it called? Refrain, chorus, whatever. Nipple, nipple, twister, twister, nipple, nipple, twister, twister. Best lyrics.
Best lyrics we ever wrote.
Yeah, so he left, and then we were like, okay, you know, we were like playing the songs for 3 years, like the same set list. These poor guys coming to our shows again and again, like, okay, same set list. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna catch the next concert in like 2 months. Oh, same set list again. Yeah, well, fuck, guys.
Yeah.
And 3 years, something like that. I was like, okay, we have to rewrite. We have to write some songs.
Yeah.
And what do you do if you don't have an Yves in your band? So basically, you just jam, right? And this is, if I remember it correctly, it was pretty cringe. It's like,
yeah. I mean, we had the the question of how do we write songs from now on? Because it wasn't clear that you or I were going to write those songs. We were just like, okay, how do we do it? So we tried different things, and one thing was jamming, which in our band just doesn't work at all.
It felt like if you're like 14, oh, you're playing the guitar, you're a drummer. Yeah, so basically we're a band, right? So it's like, okay, just play some riffs, and I'm just playing drums. It's like, dude, what the fuck? And this song especially, this is like, the main idea was from me back then, but dude, this was like, this song changed so much, it's crazy. Whatever. So basically, I was just, had this idea from this one artist from Germany, like the rap artist, like Sido. He has like this, one of his favorites, most famous songs, actually. And it was like, that was like, yeah, dude, I would love to have this like as the main refrain, because it's like, this stompy, and feels like, you just feel like you want to headbang to this riff. And so I was like, okay, this is working out pretty fine, I think, or at least it's still on the song, so basically it worked out somehow. And the working title was like AF. And so I think for the first month, no one was asking, what the fuck is this? What's that? I was like, yeah, okay, maybe it's just like a small little whatever, surprise there. But I think you asked once, or maybe Leonie or whoever. But in the studio, like our producer Tony from Music Passion, it is, right? He was like asking, what's this AF? I was like, yeah, it's Arschfick. It's from the Arschfick song from Sido. It's like, what's that? Well, yeah, but for this situation, I was like, it's totally worth it, man.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think how you see music and how I see music is quite different. From one point, because you're a drummer and I'm a guitarist, but also...
So okay.
But also,
what do you mean you're a drummer, I'm a guitarist? I'm sorry, man.
No, but I mean, it's just, we just can't go in the rehearsal room and play something and it works out.
Yeah.
It's always a bit of work to make your idea and my idea somehow work. Mm-hmm. But if it works, it's quite cool because it's not just straight up thrash.
No.
It's always a bit different, so that's cool, but it takes some time, and I think that's why jamming doesn't really work in our band.
Do you know this music meme, like this band meme about who were you, whatever? This was basically what we did for like jamming. Yeah. It's like, no, it's like, whatever, and you're like, no, and you're like, okay, can you play it like that? And you would point it on like the floor top, like, dude, this doesn't make sense. I'm not like I have 2 arms, you know. So
I mean, somehow it works to write a riff like that, but a riff is not a song, you know. And then the problem is,
let's play heavy metal then.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Wheels of Steel.
5 minutes.
No, but I mean, if you're yeah, if you have a riff, somehow it's quite difficult to make something from this riff. So for me, it always helps to have a bigger picture in my head what the song should be, and not just play random riffs and put them together. Yeah.
Small little note, our first album was basically just riff after riff after riff after riff after riff, and no riff was used again, except maybe for like the chorus, like the riff.
Yeah. I still love it, but
to be honest, for me as a drummer, it's like
it's
always new.
You can just see that it's our first album, and if you know how it was put together, you understand why it sounds like it sounds. But I still like it. I mean, and also one thing in our songwriting that totally changed is of course the vocals, because Yves had much more melodic vocals than Steve has, because he's coming from the death metal scene. We had to think about that, and also Steve is not playing any instrument, which gave us some freedom to play more difficult parts when there's vocals on it. So yeah, so I mean, when you wrote the first basic riffs, I think we jammed them together here, and then we wrote it again and again and again, and it changed so much. I think the riff that you mentioned is basically the only thing that's still left. Also not exactly how it was written at the beginning, at least not from the melodies. Yeah, and everything else changed. Just pitching ideas, and okay, we throw that away, and new chorus, to new intro, and everything changed.
We had like 4 intros written for this song, and it all got cut off.
Yeah.
And it's just like starting with the riff, except like his intro as a vocal.
Yeah.
And that's all. I think it's working out.
Yeah, and I think what I learned, at least for me, is if you're trying to make a part better so hard, and it just doesn't get any better, then it's the moment to just cut it and write something entirely new.
We are getting older, you know?
Yeah. But even after we had the song, we did a demo recording of the song with like everyone.
First time?
For the first time. And then we listened to it, and then we again cut some parts, wrote new parts. And I think we did that for 3 times or something like that, until we had like a final version of the song. And I hope next time it will be faster, but I think it was like an evolution and a progress that was very helpful, and we learned a lot, I think, for the next songs. When we had the final parts and talked about the songs with our producer Tony, we went into the studio to record them in June.
In Biel, one of the worst cities, man. Just go. Biel sucks so much.
Yeah, the previous studio that he was in was much better in terms of you could see the lake, and
it was
the cows,
countryside.
It was beautiful. Now it's in Biel, which isn't exactly where you should go when you visit Switzerland.
I think if you go be there at like 5 p.m, you will get stabbed and robbed within 10 seconds. You get out of the train, stab, you go in the train again, man. You know, like Biel is pretty known for being a bit sus.
I mean, maybe Tony is the one who's stabbing the people.
I mean, he has long hairs.
Yeah, and he's from Germany.
And he has tattoos.
Recording went very smooth, I think.
Pretty fast, actually.
Yeah.
Fabian was crazy fast, as always.
Yeah, he's always fast.
To be honest, sorry Fabian, I love you, I know. But I always feel like he hasn't prepared anything. But maybe he's just as good as he is, so basically just listen to it like once and he's gonna play it.
Steve's vocal recordings also went well, I think.
It
was very hot on that day.
Dude, it was like 30 degrees outside. He was like in this little box, right?
Yeah.
He was like sweating like crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At this song that we weren't actually happy with. With the verses.
Yes.
After recording it, so we were 2 days. We had 4 vocal recordings and bass. So we wrote new lyrics at the evening and recorded it the next
second day.
Yeah, and it was much better. yeah, so it was totally worth it.
What was your nice line that totally fucked up Steve?
Conservation in tiny cages.
Dude, that's... If he's drinking like one beer before the show, this will blah, 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 blah. This will not be words he's saying.
Yeah.
But,
We also weren't that happy with the back vocals, so we re-recorded on the same day all back vocals and just sang the back vocals a little bit higher, and that made quite a difference, I think, and it's quite cool how they sound now, I think.
I think I remember Tony mentioned you should sing it like you were in like a soccer stadium. And not like you want to, oh, I'm so bad. It's more like you want to cheer for your club or team.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we made this modern cheeses and we wanted to do that as dumb as it could be.
Yeah.
And as cheap.
Yeah, and I remember that we were talking about ideas, and then we were talking about when we could film this, and we saw that the only date that would be working for the next 3 months was in about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So in 2 weeks we had to find a location, someone who could film it, and a concept and all the props and everything.
Yep.
So that was really tough and intense
crazy.
2 weeks.
Crazy.
Yeah. But we did it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Actually, preparing these props and do some DIY shit with them, I love it.
Yeah.
I love to go like to the Jumbo, like this market for all the stuff you need for like building houses and whatever. You just can, it's like candy shopping, man.
Yeah.
Okay, I need this color, I need that, and so it's great.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's great that Yves did the video clip for several reasons, because of course, it's great to have him still involved with our band to some degree. Yeah. And also, Yves is just a guy who was made for that stuff, because he's creative, and when he sees an opportunity to do something, he just leans in and does it, that it's really, really great, and not just, okay, I will come with my camera and we will do some shots and that's it. I mean, he did like this slideshow that we did, and I was at his company when he programmed it. So it was really cool to see that, because I have no idea how light programming works.
I know how to like handle the ones in my room, like on and off.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not very complicated what he did, but it was very efficient. What it should do, because also we had a very small budget for the clip. But that worked out great, and as we experienced for a lot of years, when Yves is onto something, he will do it right. And there were 2 or 3 very, very stressful days for everyone, but it's really cool that it turned out the way it did. I mean, especially when you consider the time that we had, because alone the props that we had to do they turned out very funny, and in the end I think pretty much everything worked as we wanted to, more or less. But that was not easy. I mean, I remember that we had this gas pistol, this pump, and we wanted to put the liquid in it, and we experienced that it doesn't come out if you pull, because that's just like security.
It needs a vacuum, right?
Yeah.
So basically, if you put it in the car, it will close this vacuum of the tank again, and then the gasoline or petrol, whatever, will flow. Yeah. And if it's not like a vacuum, there is no flow from this pump. Yeah. And I mean, you had to mix this oil stuff. Dude, so this whole video clip also turned into a little science project. It was. I was doing 10 or 12 attempts of, okay, do we want to mix it with honey and with some water and some oil, and how much oil to water, and then, okay, this is it feels nice, nice texture, whatever. But okay, now the black. So it was just buying some small little powder. Just put it in, dude, I'm gonna need 1,000 of this fucking thing. Okay, I have a look at another store online. What other things I could use? Okay, maybe I should use paint. Oh no, paint will dry, and then it's not like a liquid, right? It's not like oil, then it's fucking one big chunk of whatever it is. So basically, just it was a science project. So if you ever need fake oil, hit me up.
Yeah, and I mean for the Jesus costume, I mean you obviously had to see that it's Jesus,
Yeah.
but it also just had to look trashy, and I think we absolutely nailed that.
Dude, it just started with the most random, unclear Jesus picture I was able to find on Google. And what I did is like I downloaded it and upscaled it, and then took a screenshot and upscaled it again, so it's gonna look even worse than it was. But then you see that on the mask, right? It looks, dude, it looks like
It looks like
30
the real
years
thing,
ago. Yeah, I mean, that's of course the one I was praying every night.
I'm pretty sure Jesus looked exactly like that.
Yes, his mighty beard and hair, dude. Such a nice young little man.
Yeah, and I remember I ordered this very cheap costume, and then
You motherfucker.
and then we saw that it doesn't have a beard
And no hair.
and no hair.
I was like, dude, I should play the Jesus. Do I look like Jesus? Where is my beard? Dude, it's not there for 31 years. It will
Yeah.
not come within a week.
And you, I think you went to a store
Yeah.
and you bought some stuff which
Yeah.
looked like more like a hippie than
Yeah.
Jesus does.
Yeah.
But with the mask, it just adds to the trashiness.
Dude, and this mask, this was like 10 hours of DIY. Like, okay, print it, then glue it on this cupboard, then cut it out, okay. Then put on this construction worker glasses, whatever. And if you want to have it like on your face, you will see maybe it's just my nose, okay, but my nose was, maybe it's too long, whatever. So I had to carve out my nose into this like mask. So basically if I would wear it for like 30 minutes, all my sweat would end to my tip of my nose and would then be in this mask. It was so nasty. To the first day of like doing all these scenes with Jesus, was it like 2 hours, 3 hours, something like that. Thank God I prepared 2 masks.
Yeah.
So I was like in a half, like, oh dude, this is sweating like crazy.
Yeah. I also thought it was funny that we covered your tattoos.
Dude, that was unreal.
And like
That was
after the
unreal.
after the third take of the first scene, like everything was with this
makeup.
this makeup,
Yeah,
the skin makeup.
Yeah.
Everywhere was just makeup,
Yeah.
and your costume was full of makeup. But, yeah,
We just loved it.
yeah. So if you look the clip, you can see that the costume sometimes changes from clean to
It
dirty.
was super dirty. But it was so crazy seeing my arms once again without the tattoos.
The band shots, they were pretty straightforward compared to everything else, I think.
Yeah.
It was very cool with the light. Eve had everything figured out as soon as the music played. The lighting was in sync with the music and everything, so that was very cool how we did that. Very easy or simple, but very efficient and exactly what we needed for the clip, so very cool.
So I will ask you a question, okay? How did you know when Steve was standing in this circle and getting filmed? What was the big change? Dude, the music was way louder.
Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
this was like,
Yeah, that's true.
that was so loud when Steve was in there. Yeah, I have to feel the music. Yeah, dude, go on. If you need that, it's okay. But I thought, dude.
Yeah, man, it's metal, man. It has to be loud.
Yeah.
Eve also cut the video clip, and he was very fast at that, so that was pretty cool. And in the end, I think it turned out very well. So especially if you look at the time and the budget that we have, but also if you put it away, I think it's a really, really cool video clip.
I think so as well, yeah.